I want to welcome you to day 3 of the Grit for Life, the Director's Workshop. In the last 2 days, we have been talking about the importance of finding the right screenplay in order for you to set the foundation for the movie of you're going to direct, the movie of your life. We talked about the importance of you being the one to write it. Don't worry about what other people say. Don't worry about if other people get it. It is your movie. You're the director. You're in charge. So we've talked about that, and we begin to. So now you have that screenplay, or you should be starting to look toward that screenplay, and you've started identifying highlights or things that are important that you want in your movie, or in this metaphor, your life. So where do we go from there? How do we start building upon the screenplay? Now is the time where one of the things you can start doing is visualizing where you want to be. You want to start visualizing what that screenplay on the big screen of the universe in your life, what it's going to look like. And one of the things that a director does when directing a movie to start helping him and those involved in those who are involved with the support of the movie, the actors, supporting actors, how they understand how it all starts coming together is they do what's called storyboarding. I really love the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy. And I bought the extended version of the Lord of the Rings, and in it has some behind the scenes, and it shows where they're storyboarding the movie. And the storyboarding is literally crude drawings in sequence of how the director perceives the way the movie is going to be. What this does is it gives the director a guide. It gives the actors, all of those involved, a guide to be able to start getting on the same path toward the end result, this blockbuster movie. Now, I say crude because it's not filled in. This isn't meant to be really an animated movie. It's not a hand-drawn movie. It's a live action, just as your life is live action. But a director sits down and says, I have the screenplay, and when I read through the screenplay, here is a crude version, an outline, a sketch, a guide to how I see this movie taking place. When I talk to people so many times, they tell me how they want to see things differently in their life. Or if they could do it all over again, they would do things differently. I have people tell me how they have these dreams, but they don't know how to get there. Even recently, I've been talking to people who said, I feel stuck. I don't feel as if I can really go anywhere. And when I start talking to them, it's okay, well, tell me if you could get there. Let's take out the I can't get there, because again, you're the director. So you get to direct this. If you could get there from the first camera pan in to the last roll of the credits, how would you do that? What does it look like? What is your plan to get there? And so many times I have people tell me, well, I don't have a plan because I can't get there. They've already shut down the production of their movie before it's even got off the ground, before they even got funding, before they even found out who the supporting actors are of their life. They shut it down. Now, many, as we've stated, shut it down in the writing of the screenplay, but there are people out there, and I am getting you there, and I hope you are getting you there, to where you're understanding that you can write your own screenplay. I don't have to understand it. Nobody has to understand it. It's for you. But now, how are you going to get from point A to point B in that screenplay out onto the big screen in a way that you are passionate about it, as well as those who become supporting actors, those become costume design, or whatever it is, can all be on the same page? You have to have a guide. But first of all, you have to believe that it is achievable. I'm not saying that the storyboarding is going to stay the same. Just like the screenplay, that's what's really awesome, is you get to have a vision and set out a plan of storyboarding your life. But as the director, as things change, as maybe new technology and special effects happen in your life, or supporting actors come or supporting actors go, maybe the scene, the setting doesn't quite fit what you're looking at, you get to change as you go. The drawings are crude in a storyboard, and you can throw a storyboard out, bring a new one in, maybe erase something, or maybe just use the storyboard for a guide. The storyboard is not meant to be the movie. It is meant to be a guide in a direction to get you to where you're going. How does this apply to our lives? How does this apply to us taking the screenplay of our lives and putting it out there? It is so vitally important that you don't wing your life. Have you ever watched a movie that made no sense? Like, you were really excited about it and you watched it. Or maybe you weren't excited about it, you came across it and you started watching it, and you just couldn't get into it. You couldn't follow the director's vision. Nothing seemed to make sense. It all was jumbled. Seemed like you were missing pieces. I'd venture to say it's because the director really wasn't quite sure what they were doing. Now let me ask you, how close does that seem to your life? You ever wake up in the morning and think that somehow from the time that you went to bed to the time that you got up and got going, that you missed something? Someone sliced a scene and threw it out and didn't put it back in, and now you're really confused because the star of the story doesn't seem to be jiving with everything else that's going on in the story? I have. I've been there. And when looking back, I realized that it usually was the time that I was just throwing the script, the screenplay in the air. Nobody was on the same page in my life. Most importantly, the director of my life wasn't on the same page. And I was just winging it. Now, improv, we know when you do movie research, there are individuals who are really good at movie improv. Robin Williams, the late Robin Williams, was one of those individuals. There are some scenes in movies that if you go back and you look, they ended up becoming classic scenes that were never intended to be in the movie. But the movie as a whole had a direction. Your life will have some improv, and that's okay. It's how we roll with the improv, is whether it's going to work or not. But we have to have a direction. And that direction comes from us storyboarding our life. Let's say that right now you're saying, you know what? I know that I'm not where I need to be. And I want you, when I say that, that resonates with you. I know it does. And already something, and each one of you are different, something in your head steps out and takes center stage. And immediately, you want it to get off stage. Because it's either a dream that was squashed or a vision that was blinded. That is where I want you to be right now. I want you to stop for a second. You're the director. Yell cut. We haven't even really got to filming it yet, but I want you to yell cut. I want you to stop everything on the set of your life's movie. I want you to get up, and I want you to walk around as everything is almost like frozen. And I want you to look at the faces of the actors and the actresses in your scene. I want you to look at the starring role, the starring actor. That's you. See, you're the director and the starring role. Do you see? What is it that's making this not just right? Now what I want you to do is determine, what is it going to take? Throw all excuses out. Let's say that this movie is so funded that you could do anything you want with it, because guess what? It is your life. You can. And I want you to decide how you are going to get this scene in your life just right. Maybe it's starting your own business. Maybe it's just being happier in life on a daily basis. Maybe it's letting go of some kind of fear. Maybe it's turning off the voices that have been speaking to you for way too long. Maybe it's starting your own business. Maybe it's getting out of an abusive relationship. And I understand that in this scene, in this movie, you've already invested a lot. But what I want you to do is don't let that fear hold you back anymore. And I want you to start storyboarding this. What does that look like? It looks like this. Let me use some illustrations in my life. We're going to use Grit for Life, this organization, as an example. When I started, I have been motivating people for years. I have been doing public speaking for years, long before Grit for Life ever came around. But I had come to a point in my life where I realized that I needed to do something more. I needed to reach more people. I was running into people left and right every single day on social media and in my own life who were hurting, who just were wandering around the set of their movie. And I realized that they needed direction. And so when I set out to do Grit for Life, I sat down and I had a vision of what it could be. We were far from that. When we first started, I had no idea how to even do a YouTube channel. Had no idea about podcast. I mean, I'd heard of podcasts, didn't know about podcasts, didn't know how to do podcast. Wasn't even sure what a Facebook group was. All I knew is I had to find something. And so I set out and I said, okay, it's just me right now. When we start off, it was just me. And I said, I know the first thing I want to do is motivate and change lives. I want to do that on a bigger scale. And so I started writing out ideas. In the next 6 months, here's what I want to do. I want to be able to reach several people, whether they get it or not, or understand it or not. I want to know I could make contact with several people. How do I do that? Well, social media is probably the best and easiest way. So I went in and I searched and I found out these Facebook groups. I drew on past experiences from working on my novels of how to do some kind of marketing, but I wasn't really good at it at the time. And so then setting it up, I set up a Facebook group. Invited a whole bunch of people. Many didn't accept the invite, or they didn't get the choice, because at that time you could add people without them really knowing it, and then they would leave. But I did it. See, I storyboarded that scene out. Then I noticed we had a consistent number of people sticking around. And so I thought, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do a video or something. Again, didn't know how to do it. And it was just a really, with no editing, no real production. It was done on the first try. I would do these videos. And those caught on. And I started storyboarding of people started asking me more and more things. I started realizing that, well, maybe if I do like a workshop, how would I do it if I was out speaking in public to groups? I do it like in a workshop format. I could do that using social media. So I sketched that out. I wrote that out, figured out what it would look like. During this time, I began to build our mission statement. Why does Grit for Life exist? I wrote that out. And then I began to write. And then as leaders came on, we began to strategize the future. And guess what? 5 years later, we are doing more now than I ever could have imagined. And now I'm having to pencil in and storyboard the next 5 years. 5 years ago, I had a vision of what Grit for Life could be. But so many fears and so many obstacles. Excuse me. Whatever it is in your life, right now, it may seem unobtainable. That is because you have no plan to get there. Now, my plans have changed. We started Grit Youth. It didn't work out. We started other Grit for Life stuff. didn't work out. The storyboard changed. But each time it changed, we wouldn't just throw the whole plan away. We would bring another piece of the storyboard in and roughly sketch it out and say, well, that didn't work, but what did we learn from it? So many people are too scared to plan because somewhere in your life you had plans and those plans fell through. And instead of looking at what did I learn from the failed plans, instead you just looked at that they failed or they fell through. Instead of looking at maybe there's a reason they fell through because that wasn't supposed to be a scene in the movie. You just walked off set, turned off the lights, and sent the crew home. But fortunately for you, I have your stack of storyboards. And I'm knocking on your door. And you're opening it right now as you listen to this. And I am telling you, hey, you left these. You open up this storyboard book and you begin to remember what it was like to smile. Maybe not, maybe it's hard and maybe you don't quite, but you remember one time. What it means to hope. Again, maybe difficult, but the storyboard reminds you that there was a time. Maybe as a child, maybe just briefly. But there was a time. A time before it all closed down, shuttered up, and production came to a halt. We're not at full production right now. I'm just handing you the opportunity to write your screenplay, and I'm asking you to storyboard it out so that I can see and others can see, but most importantly, you as the director can see where you're headed. You can do this. It is possible. Sure, there will be obstacles and things will change. But this time, instead of shutting down production, you're going to just say cut. And you're going to get up out of that director's chair and you're going to tell everyone, hold on a second. Go to your trailers, take a coffee break. Let me walk this scene. Let me re-storyboard this. It is vitally important that you plan out your destiny. Because a movie that has no director planning out the direction the movie is going will go in no direction at all. Go grit it. Your response is your responsibility.